Okay, so we've done quite a lot of work to this one. As I said before, we've gone round and we've cut out that entire track area, as you can see underneath, right the way round. What this enables us to do, it enables us to have a little bit of movement all around the side, which is making it a lot more sort of stable, easier fit together, and certainly improves all the fits as we go round. So the bottom side is completely done now. I'm really happy with how that one is. Next up is lining up all the top. So we've got the same problem, you might be able to see, we've got running down here, we've got these strips. Okay, now they're going to have to be removed, but first of all we want to make sure this outer one is in there perfect. The point of removing these strips, let me just move that one a minute, is because if we put a hole from the outside coming in, what's going to happen is you're going to get that sort of, you know, door effect where if you don't get both holes lined up, you're not going to get any light seen through it. Because what we want to do is remove all of that, so you've only got the single piece for the light to actually come through. The plan is, what will happen is for this lower deck, as you can see, we've got this bar work running all the way around here. The light strip will lean up against this and it will come down, it will come back up. Okay, then we're going to run it forward, it will go round the actual the cargo bay, this bottom bay as it comes up, then it will transfer and come up into this section here, and as we had it just then, we just pop this back into position, it will come up and it will circle round inside this one, giving us our different light layers as you come through and everything else. So no problems with those at all. The trouble that we have is obviously when we want to bring it up through this section, okay, we've got no actual way, put these in, we've got this forward one and then the rear one, which, you know, to be honest, these aren't a terrible fit. It's one of the better areas now. This is all pretty good. But getting the wiring up is a bit of a no-no, because we've only got this small gap down the back, and then when we have this island come in, it's going to lock it all up. So it's not actually going to be able to get round and in there. So what I've done here, I've marked out a little section at the top for us to take out. So this way we can actually get the lights and we can run them around in a circle down here, screws through, allows the light to come through. Now, easiest way for this, and I know it's somewhat cheating, is to do it with a little rotary tool. So I've just got one of these cheap ones. You come along. Normally I'll do this outside because it's resin dust, but I'll just do a little bit just to show you. But basically all we're going to do is come in, we're in. So what you can actually do, from my point of view, as you can see, it's pretty thick stuff running down here. I'm getting it to cut through, but then you can come along with your blade. I'll find it, which looks like this one. Okay, and you can literally just come in now and cut all the way down. Okay, carry on and cut it all completely out. This way we've got a nice little thing and we can have the lights come up, even if we have to make a small little structure that comes up here with the lights running around it. But it'll just allow it all to come through, because then this one will be clear. Okay, this will allow the lights to all shine through this one, no problem at all. Okay, and then what we can do is then just run, it's going to be like a dual coil, it's going to go up from here, these two halves together. Okay, then it will come up through here, so it's going to shine up the back of it and glow this entire unit up. Okay, and then what we'll have to do is again put some holes in this guy, because obviously as this fits onto the top here, there's nothing in. So what I'm going to do is going to put a hole at the front, just down in here like this. So then what will happen is the lights then will just run a ring around in here, and obviously will illuminate the entire, making sure you've got an LED nice right in the middle of this front one, because this is the actual bridge you can see here, this little bit that sticks out. Okay, that way we're going to try and put in tiny little holes, so it'll completely, we might even remodernize that. If we can't get the holes good enough, I might put in a little bit in there just to do it all properly. But obviously we've got light running down the back of this as well, because we've got these plates which look like this that are going to run down the back of it, down the spine. Those all need to be illuminated as well. Also, what I've done, but to be honest, they're not actually here yet, I've purchased a 10mm LED, which is for the main engine, okay, and I've purchased then four 5mm LEDs for these small ones, and the idea is we're going to lower the sort of the voltage going through, so they're not like blinding light, but it's a nice hue, and it will give us our engine sort of movements to go through it. And because we sort of changed the plan now about not having the subframe going through here so it can be held that way, it will position itself, we can hardwire these up and everything else. So to be honest, what we're going to do, we'll place this down in here. When it's down in there, we can then easily run the wiring down to the back here. We're going to put a plug unit which we're going to hide nicely down through here, so it's just going to come around out. So what I'm going to do now is, to be honest, is take this outside, because resin dust, horrible thing, you don't really want to be breathing that in. Wear a mask, I've got a respirator, we're going to cut all this resin area out. I'm also going to go round and, as I said, and cut these out as well. You don't have to take them down completely flush like we did these, just enough so you're making sure you can see through. That way we can then come along and weld all of that up so we know it's completely solid and it's light resistant. Okay, then what we can actually do is start putting these top areas in, getting them seated in, because as I said, we have got the trouble, it's not exactly the most flattish here. It's not as bad as it was, because to be honest, it used to do this, but I have straightened it out a little bit just by putting the metal bars on it. We can get them fixed in and everything else, and we can start building our way up from the top section, because one of the last things we're going to do is actually sandwich the entire thing together. We're not going to sort of, you know, put it together and then build this on top. We want it nice locked in and everything else, so we can have the wiring coming down. And then what we're going to have to do is talk about the wiring, the soldering, and hopefully some nice connector joints, just to make everything easy to line up and just to wire up, so we can use some connectors, pop them in and have no problem at all. So next up, getting all dusty with the resin. Okay, so we've really come to the point now where we can start to move on, put it all together, and to be honest, what I've done is, again, taking care of alignment issues, because we couldn't get this tower section up here at the bridge to fit in nicely. Again, more sanding. It's just a question really of going through time, just taking your time and methodically working through each area and why it doesn't fit in. That's the only bit of advice I can really give with this one. There's no rights and wrongs, there's no easy fixes to it. It's just that thing of saying, right, okay, we're going to position it all into position. Now we're going to try and fit this bit. It doesn't go, so let's work out why. So a lot of it, what I've actually done is look for stress marks on the resin to see where it's rubbing, things like that, and just working on those sole areas to take care of it. But as you can see, we're actually to the point now where it's holding together, and you can see up here at the back end and everything else, and it absolutely weighs a ton, this thing. Okay, but we're into the position now where we can start to move on. So actually, a couple of little things I've done. Let me just take the bridge section off a second, and then hopefully this bit will pop out the back. The top bit comes off. Okay, and it's nice, it's got a nice feel to it as well. When it locks in, it locks in. Okay, what we've done, let me undo these. Okay, that's the other thing, when you undo the clamps now, nothing suddenly goes ding and flies off and all the rest of it, and it's actually holding its own. So what we have is this section now is completely glued in. Okay, so this one isn't. So if we just move this out of the way a sec. What I've done, I've gone around, and you can see, made a little bit of a mess, where you can see I've been pouring resin. We've cut out all of those internals, okay, they've all gone now, and to be honest, that was a bit of a Dremel job with the old buzz blade, and go round and cut them all out. Again, safety, do it outside, respirator on, or the other way I did it, to be honest, my smaller booths I use, got a great drawer on those. I just lined them up here, got it down in front with a mask on as well, and cut them all, and took them all care of that. Next, I've gone round and I've poured resin in the same way as we did the filler job, everywhere in these gaps. This is to do twofold. One is to weld this up and to make sure we've got no light bleed coming through or anything else like that. Secondly, it's purely as a strength thing. Because it's got the backing of the resin down here in these joints, you can see it down here, okay, it gives it great rigidity, because obviously what we've done, we've taken out the bars which were running down here, which gave it strength. They've gone now, so we needed these ones to replace it. And it has got a feel now, and it feels really solid. There's no wobble in it, there's no pulling around or anything else like that, so really happy how we did that. You might be able to see down in here, which camera, let's try this one over here. This one down here, as you can see, we've got some styrene sheet put in the back. We've also done it at the front, okay, and we've gone round and taken care, because when you look at it up this way, we've had this massive gap. Now, it's not perfect because we've still got to go round. Let's try off the top camera. You might be able to see, especially down here, we've got quite a large gap down there, all right? So I need to get in there and fill it. But what it does do is obviously it gives me a platform to work to. I can get in there with filler. We can sculpt it as well a little bit, like we've down below, so we can actually sculpt it and put in some of those details we've lost, okay? But again, it was just a case of sanding, filling, taking care. So we've got pretty good, you can probably see it on here, these lines up here are nothing like we used to have, okay? Same with the side ones. I've got to weld them up down in here. We need to put some in, because when you flip it over, you can actually see what I did, to be honest, had the LED strips and I've put them in and had a look, and we can see there's a little bit of light bleed underneath here, just down in this section. So we need to get in there when we do the next little bit of welding up, and we're going to do the same thing, knock up a little bit of resin, flow it round, make sure it's all in there nice and tight. You also might be able to see down the back here, we've put in a couple of strips of styrene, 1mm styrene, and again, we've done it. We've actually sanded this in and we've blended it all in. Because it's super glue, it looks a little bit clear, but trust me, that is all exactly how it should be. And it really is all solid. So what we need to do now is come along, and I'm going to give it a coat of car primer, just grey primer underneath here completely, on the inside only, and we're going to do it to this one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a look to see how much light issues we've got through. If it has got light issues, what we're going to do is backfill it with resin, so that completely takes care of it. And then what we're going to actually do is do it in black, completely in black here, absolutely everything, to try and stop light bleed coming through. It might need a couple of coats. But what that'll enable us to do then is when we drill from the outside, we know we're secured, okay? Next up, we've got to, once we've done that, what we want to do is down in here is to knock up another former. So I'm going to have another former running across the back here, just from one side to the other, like this one, and we're going to put another small one in the front. What these are designed to do is just to make sure it holds the right shape all the way through, okay? There's a reason this one is a little bit smaller, purely because I'm going to have the LED lights running down here, so we're going to have to put some holes in them and things like that. Once that one's done, again, that will then be car primer, absolutely everything to go right the way through. But at least now, I'm hoping, from the point of view is, we've got to a situation where now all the horrible jobs out of the way, because as we can see, when you're looking at these parts, there's not a lot left of the original apart from the actual plating on the outside here and putting this section down, because obviously we've cut all of those completely off, we've cut all of those completely off, and we're really making it our own now. And that's what I've been saying, and I'm trying to get to, across to you guys, is that, you know, don't think because it's a model it has to be done A, B and C and all the rest of it. Take your time with it, work your way through, okay? And if you think I got a better way of doing it, then do it, okay? Do it every single time. Don't be too worried about making big cuts and changes to a model. If there's a simpler way of doing it, always do the simple route. I do, you know, sometimes I look at instructions on a normal kit, you look at them and you think, I'm not doing it like that, I'll do that later. Undercarriage is a classic example. Why is it kit manufacturers always tell you to put the undercarriage in right at the beginning? If you do it then, that means it's a nightmare to paint it. You run the risk of knocking it off and things like that. I always leave all the dangly bits and fiddly bits, everything completely to the end, as you see on all my builds. So don't take too much notice on what other people do and what the kit tells you to do, okay? Plan it out, get it down in your own mind. It's a little bit different with something like this because a lot of it's trial and error, but certainly for your general modelling, have a look at it, have a look at the parts, and then plan your route right the way through. So you might think to yourself, well look, I'm not going to worry about doing ejector seats, because it's normal, if you do an aircraft kit, start off with the seats. It's one of the last things to go in, okay? So you might as well do it last. You know, so they can get onto other bits. And also you might be in a situation, you know, obviously if time's precious, things like wheels, gear and weapons, things like that, you can build those and take care of those when other things drying. So when you've got fuselage halves together, perhaps you've got a filler job, things like that, by all means, you know, let that one side and dry, and you haven't ruined all your time now having to sit around and wait for filler to dry. You can then get on and do other bits and pieces. Exactly the same doing something like this. So what also we've got is turned up, just mention them, is these guys. Now these I've been waiting for about a week now actually to come through. Now these are LED lights which I bought just off of Fleabay, to be honest, okay? And these little guys here are 10mm lights. To be honest, I haven't got my power set here at the moment to go through it, but needless to say, these give us, like the original, You can go out there and look at manufacturers and they'll make you twinkly, flickery, nice lights and all the rest of it. Don't forget, with these Airbirds, they were done in post-production. These are computer effects that were put on afterwards. What they actually had was standard blue lights in the back, and in those days they were ones that got hot. These we don't have to worry about because these are nice and cool. The other thing as well, when you look at a lot of the ways people do this, they have the big engines, these giant ones running, okay, at the same time as these little ones as well. Well, when you look at the original film, it only actually had the big one, these iron engines, I think they are, were actually running. So what I'm going to do is, I have got a bag full of smaller little LEDs here, okay, because they come in sets of 5, for doing the smaller engines. But what I'm going to primarily use is the big ones. They're going to have the blue. They're going to be wired completely to the same. So it's not like they're going to be on a different circuit. So have one for engines, one for external lighting, one for the big engines, one little engine, things like that. I'm just going to have it simple, one on-off switch like we did with the ship recently when we did the Iwo Jima. It'll be click it on and then the lock comes on. Click it off, the lock goes off. Okay, so but these are absolutely fantastic. So you can find them on Fleabay or eBay, and what you actually do is I'm going to drill these out. We're going to mount these into there, and they should go in really nicely, but they're the perfect size. And the great thing with LEDs, as we know, no temperature, really cool. Okay, so they're not going to get hot in any way and start melting everything like that. So what we'll do is we'll cover that in depth a little bit later, but they actually turned up this morning, so that's why I wanted to show you and get those in. Price for these, they weren't bad as well. I think it was like £5, so for a set of 5, bargain. Okay, so next up, I'm going to take this outside because there's no way I'm going to spray it in here with car primer. We're going to clean up and we're going to car prime the inside completely of both of these and everything else, and I'm going to prime up and do the back end of the actual these as well. But because I'm going to use car primer with a giant rattle can, I don't want to do it in here because immediately it will bung up all my filters and everything else like that, and all see it's no problem. Painting and weathering, don't worry, we'll cover that in depth over many episodes a little bit later on. But what we're trying to do is get this all together now, because as soon as that's done, we can really start bringing this together. Okay, back. Yeah, what a mess. Quite frankly, we're all over the place. Got on with lots of bits and pieces. Let's just cover where we're to now. Oh, gosh. Right, underside, as you can see, completely grey. We've used that resin that we poured down absolutely everywhere to seal up on the inside. Happy with how it is, but obviously we need to make this thing light impervious. Now, if you were using fibre optics and doing it that way, then you wouldn't have to worry about it, because obviously the light will only show through exactly where it is. And normally what you can actually do, if you're using LEDs, we'll cover these in a moment like this one, what you can actually do is put it in a tube. Careful how you do all of this, but if you get a tube for the right size, I have got one bigger. I don't know if I've actually, that's probably the biggest I've got at the moment. But what you can actually have is use a metal tube, fit it over the end of the LED so it fits just like this, okay? And then what you do, you bunch all the fibre optics down into the tube. That way you don't have the light shining out and causing a light spot somewhere actually inside the model itself. From our point of view, just a coat of primer really to have a look around, make sure we're all okay, but I'm going to paint this couple of coats of thick black paint in here to make it light impervious as well. Also, it's going to add to a little bit of strength in there because it's going to be very thick and everything else. But certainly we are now pretty solid all in here. We're happy we've got no light bleed coming through directly. Yes, you can still see it if you put an LED right up to the resin, but that's what we're going to lose in a moment. And you might be able to see we've gone along and I've just done grey all the way down these areas. Really, it's just to make sure that we've got no gaps and everything else. I have got a couple of gaps to take care of. We've got this joint here, and same on the other side. Okay, so we need to get rid of those and take care of them. In the meantime, I'll just stick that down there and get rid of these. The lights have all showed up for this. Now, originally I was looking at doing flickering LEDs and things like that. I think I spoke about before. Yes, they do them, but do they look realistic? I don't think so. From my point of view, I think they look a little bit fake and everything else. So what I've got hold of, there's the other one, 2 sizes. We've got a 5mm down here and we've got a 10mm LED. Now, they are both in brilliant white, and I haven't got a cable. You shouldn't really do this, but just to see, if you just poke the wire in live, you can find the sweet spot. You will end up with, we've got a blue light, which when you look at it, as you can see, is extremely bright. but it is blue. I know sometimes the camera might wipe this out a bit, but as you can see in my hand, it's that nice blue hue to it. Exactly the same with the bigger one. They're just standard blue lights. Okay, they're running on obviously I've got a power converter over there. Basically we're doing 12 direct 12 sort of 2 amp system right the way through, and I've tested it. We've put it onto a full set. So actually what we've done here is I've got the 3, this is the 3 for the main engines. As you can see, I've soldered them all together on the end of the wiring here, so we've just got 2 wires coming off. And then what will happen is, if you imagine, bear with me, this LED strip is what's going to run around everywhere inside the starter's drive. Okay, if we want to, we can turn it down, we can tighten it up, whichever way we want to go. Okay, what will happen is then you will have, I've got to remember which is live and which is thingy here, you will have your 3 engines, which I know look white on that camera, hopefully over there with you or with the other one, you can see that they're blue. We have the blue LEDs, which are going to go for the main engine ones, and in a moment you'll see we've got the 4 smaller engines as well. And that's really how it's going to wire up. It's going to be very, very simple. We're going to have a dimmer system on it, and obviously we're going to have an auto on and off and things like that. So obviously you can plug it in or you can do it on a little remote, whichever way you want to do it. So anyway, really, really simple, very, very straightforward. Let me just turn them off. But the problem we have is obviously plugging all of this lot into the system as it's going to go through. Now, I've already started working on the back end, as you can see. Did it all prime when I was priming everything else in here, and these are all the little aftermarket parts that you put on, or the extra bits to put in all these tubing in. Looking at it, it doesn't have any more than this, so I did think originally about livening it up. There's no real point because there's nothing to liven up. It is how it is. So we've got those 4 smaller engines, and then what we've got here, as you can see, are these smaller 5mm ones, and all I've did is drilled a hole straight into them, and then these come in, okay, and they go in the back. Again, I've soldered all together, twisted them together and soldered them all up like this, and there we go, our first bit of wiring all coming out the back. And when they're in there, they're absolutely fantastic, very, very bright. We need to have them on a separate system though, because the on-off for it, when you don't see them all on, it's either these smaller ones or it's the big ones. Traditionally, when you look at this one, before they started redoing them, shall we say, they actually just had the bigger engines on, didn't actually have the smaller ones on. Later on in life, you see them in different films where they've obviously had different makeovers with all of them on and various things like that. But certainly all of that went together really, really well, and all I did was open up the holes, as you can see on the back, just drilled through so the wiring can come through, because obviously it is going to get a little bit messy with the wiring. But what I'm hoping to do is have it all here at the rear bunched up. I'm going to build a loom with it so it's not going anywhere. The power in and out is going to come out this way as well. The problem you actually have is the main engines, as you can see, are like this. Okay, they are absolutely exquisite detail, and I recognise those engines. They look like they're off of a Phantom down there in the back. Certainly that area down there is the ejector ring for the afterburner, okay, where the neat fuel is dumped on normal jet engines. So they've obviously used those parts. When again you look at the originals, it looks like all they did was come along and do what we're going to do, is poke pop, something like that, the little LED into this. Now, I'll show you how I did this, because it's one of those things where if you haven't got all the correct tools and doing 10mm drill bits and with a pillar drill, if you've got a pillar drill and a 10mm, you can do it like that. For me, I just wanted to make it a little bit more snug and everything in. So there's a couple of ways I actually did this, and I'll show you. Now, I'm not saying it's the correct way, because if you've got a 10mm drill bit and a pillar drill, you'd do it this way. This is if you haven't and you're a little bit like me, and I can show you exactly how I did it. So to start off with, we got a pilot bit, and all we're going to do is into the very front of that nose, we're just going to pilot drill a small little hole down into the actual resin. Okay, every now and again as you're doing it, pull it back out, clean off your bit, because the resin by its nature will just bung it up. Now again, you could use a drill to do this, but you want it to be nice and precise, because you need it to be dead in the middle. If it's not dead in the middle, then you're going to have problems. Okay, but as you can see, we're going right in there like this. Okay, so we just keep going at it. When you feel it sort of not doing anything, just pull it out, give it a knock, in with the next one. Once you're done with that and you're happy with it, what I did, come in with a slightly bigger bit. So you've got a small little hole just in the end there, and then we came in with a slightly bigger bit, and we just made that hole a lot bigger. And again, the trouble with the resin is it has a habit of gripping the actual item as soon as it becomes loaded. All right, so just pull back, get it out, clean it out. And what you're trying to do is, in a moment we're going to drill it, but you need it to be square, and that's what I'm saying. If you've got a pillar drill, then you'll obviously just put this in there and you'll pull down and you'll have a perfectly square hole. For us though, who are sort of winging it a bit here and not having that luxury, this is why we're doing it this way. Okay, so we're just going in. Okay, and then in finally with a slightly bigger bit again, and this will take out that entire front. And as I say, this is just so it's all square to start off with. Clean them out. Okay, so you're ending up with a slightly bigger hole, which is nice and central and everything else. My bit here's a bit loose. Then you can end up and do, let's swap these over. Got in here, this is a 5mm drill bit, and as you can see I've got a little bit of tape on here. This is just for the depth. Okay, and then all we do, we're just going to come in. Go through just like so. Clean that off, get rid of that. Okay, then we just get a little bit of air in the compressor. You end up with a very nice hole like that, okay, which is dead center, exactly where we want it. Okay, now the problem I've got is obviously it's the biggest drill bit I've got. So other way of doing it, because it's resin, I've got in here a file, and it's a flat file. Okay, and it's all over the place, but what you can do then is poke it in and literally go through it just like that. Okay, and it's a little bit off center, so all we're going to do now is just come to one side, because we just need to open it up a bit in there, because it just needs to be a little bit bigger. Okay. Again, we'll just give that a quick blow out. And there we go, that opens up our hole. Now what we want to do is make it very nice, and I need to polish it up and make sure it's all perfect in there. So what I've got here, and I just want to replug this in because I had the Hoover going, to be honest, is our little Dremel tool, which has been worth its complete weight of gold during this build, okay, because to be honest, without it, we'd have loads of trouble. But I've got in here just your normal drum, and it's not going flat out. Yeah, that's whatever it is, max speed. This is quite a low speed because we don't want to melt it. Then all we're doing is we're coming in. Okay, and we're just tidying it up. And to be honest, the others, I have my respirator on, and I have the Hoover going as well at the same time to catch all the dust. Okay, then when you're in from the other side, we're just going to plug this little guy in here. And as I say, just take your time, let it work in. Just turn it up just a little bit, because what you can do, just rounding it off slightly, making it a little bit bigger, and you can custom fit the actual size of the LED in here. Okay, so we're just literally coming in. Just like so. Just test it a little bit more, and we can custom make the fit to get the LED to sit in there nice and tight. Turn it down, almost a little bit more. But as I say, doing this, wear your respirator. You don't want this stuff, it's not nice. And you don't want to be in that position where you're obviously ill through taking a quick shortcut. But there we go, that's in there just like that. That's going to sit in there. If we just give it a blow out with the compressor. Okay, and in there like that, and then this guy is going to sit in there, and that will give us our engine glow perfectly. Now, if you have got your spares box around, you could take, and I don't know if I've got any, I'm going to have a look around, but that little, the injector for the afterburner system off of, I think it's Pratt & Whitney J79 engine off the Phantom, Anoraki now, but I'm sure that's what it is. What you could do is put that bit as a photo etch down there with the LED behind it. I think that'll look absolutely fantastic, which is a bit more than it actually had at the film. But there we go, that's how we did all of these, and they're all drilled out now and done, so the engines are completed. So then what you can do is obviously put these in. What I'm going to do though, something a little bit different with this system at the back here, I'm going to do the outside of these bells for the actual engines themselves in the grey, because that's how they are with the film. But because I want them to light up and be a little bit nicer, I'm probably going to use a Alclad type or a metallizer paint on the inside so it reflects the light a little bit more. So it just shows it round, makes it a lot more sort of nicer and interesting. And because they're LEDs as well, it's that thing where unless you're looking right down LED, obviously you get blinded by it, everywhere else is a little bit sort of huey, which is great, but I think hopefully it will reflect the light around the inside of the bell here a little bit better, make it seem like more of a glow as you move through and everything else. So what I'm going to do now is get my hoover out again, get rid of all this dust and all this horrible nasties, have a little bit of a clean up and everything else like that, and then what we can actually do is pop the LEDs out of that section there, give it another coat of primer all over it and start to finish off down the back end, and then we can get the wiring installed into it, and then we can start then to think about actually getting the entire thing together and start running the actual LED strip around the inside exactly how we want it and everything else like that.